Ladies and gentlemen, it's with pleasure I announce that I'm running for oh, the wrong speech. Look, if you don't know Dorothy, you haven't quite lived yet. This is a terrific lady, and we would think of excuses to go to St. George as Democratic Party staff so we could go down and see Dorothy and unbelievably get energized by her energy in running the Washington County Democrats. I mean, she's infectious. A little bit like a Democratic Ebola. She just gets you and is full of energy, and she is just sure we're going to win. And you can go over the numbers and you can show her where we have not won that district since 1951. And Dorothy is sure that this is going to be the year. I mean, where do you find that kind of exuberance and optimism and energy and loyalty and wonderful than in this fabulous woman? She taught special needs children, which I guess put her in a good position for politics, and moved to Utah with her fabulous husband a few years ago. She has changed St. George. She has changed Washington County. The Republicans, the Democrats, everybody respects this woman. She has a letter to the editor in just about every other day, and she's moved the meter in politics. Every single week she has a breakfast get-together, and I understand they're moving it into the Special Events Center at the university there. It is getting so many people out to the breakfast. She is a wonderful, wonderful woman, a treasure for the Utah Democratic Party and for the state. Please give a warm welcome to the former Washington County Democratic Party Chair, Dorothy Engelman.
I've never been called Ebola before. I don't know where he gets some of this stuff. I do have to say thank you first. I need to say that first. Jim and I were both elected chairs in 2011. He was state chair and I was county chair, and look where he ended up. I don't know. The other thing I think is interesting that when Lauren called to tell me about this award, she said, you know, you've been nominated for several years, and I'm so excited to be able to call and tell you that you won. And I said, yeah, all I had to do was resign as chair and lose an election. It was like, I am so delighted to be associated with the Utah Democratic Party and the Washington County Democratic Party. 6 years ago, when Gary and I moved to St. George, we knew one person in the entire state of Utah. I'm just amazed when I can almost go anywhere now and run into people I know, and to be able to look out at this crowd and see people that I've worked with, that I've supported. Just to have been involved has just been tremendous, and I'm very, very grateful for that. One of the things I feel very strongly about, and Peter is working on this, and it's coming along slowly, but it is moving in the right direction, is working on a 29-county party. When I first took over as chair in Washington County, one, nobody in Washington County knew there were Democrats, and two, I'm not sure the state party knew there were many of us down there. And one of the things that happened because of the people I was able to work with is that we now have a Southern Utah regional office in St. George, which was backed by the state party initially, and I think that's extremely important. The other thing is that I'm now serving on the state executive committee, and I can attend meetings from St. George via Fuse. In fact, I was at the executive committee meeting last night, sitting in my office. And I think it's one of the things that we as a party need to look at and say, the party has to grow in other parts of the state. We must do that if we're going to win elections and grow this party. It's so important. If I could wave a wand, that would be it. The other thing is to reach out to folks without a label. The Conversation Over Easy, which we started 2 years ago as a progressive breakfast group at one of the restaurants in St. George that leans our way, has continued to grow. Which there are people that really do lean left in St. George. There really are. We're averaging about 30 people a week to come to a progressive breakfast in St. George. Now, I think that's pretty amazing, and I'm so grateful for the people that have supported it, and it started in other parts of the state, which also I think is a wonderful way of meeting people in an informal way. When Jim talks about energy, somehow I got an extra batch of it once I got to St. George. Before we moved here, I had never been involved in politics. I used to write a check for $25, put a yard sign out, and that was it. And then when I got here, we attended a group called Life After 5, and I heard a gentleman named Ron Spinelli, who some of you may know, speak about a candidate named Claudia Wright. And I, at that time, was very taken with Claudia and ended up working on her campaign. And that was my first introduction to Democratic politics in Utah. It was a wonderful opportunity, and when I see where the party has gone and how I've grown as a person through the party, I'm extremely grateful. One of the things that when I ran for Utah House, and I had to resign as chair because it was it was against our bylaws to be both chair of the party and run for a state office, I was blessed with meeting so many people. Let me back up just a minute. There's one more person that I want to thank, and he's sitting here right in front of me, and that's Cyril Noble, who many of you know. Cyril has been the standard bearer in Washington County for Democrats. He ran for office, he was chair of the party, and I always remember when, there were sort of rumors going around that, well, maybe they were going to ask me to run. I'd already decided I was going to, but, they had to go through the formality. But I always remember Cyril saying, could I meet you at Starbucks? There's something I want to talk to you about. And knowing full well what it was, I said, well, of course. And so we went. Do you remember this, Cyril? We went to Starbucks, and he thought he was going to have to do a hard sell. No, I was ready. And so I was delighted to be able to replace Cyril as chair in Washington County, and have been very, very grateful for everything that he did. And again, when I look at stalwarts of the county party, Cyril's one of them. When I was running for State House, I convinced myself to run the day before filing when I was speaking to a group of students at Dixie State University, and it was on women in politics. And there was a Republican and an independent and me as representing the county party. And so the other two sort of went through and, talked about all the things in the Republican platform. The independent was, okay. And so then I got up. Well, it was one of those days, and Gary was there, that I started talking, and I wasn't behind a podium. I was able to move around. And I convinced myself to run at that point because I was talking about how it was so important to get involved in politics. And I said, one of the gals asked me at the very end, she said, what advice do you have for the young people sitting here, and particularly the women? And out of nowhere in my head came, find your passion, find your voice, find your shoes, and run. And it's advice that I would pass on to every one of you. Win or lose, it's a wonderful experience, and it gives you the opportunity to stand up and say, I don't agree with the status quo. Because when you sit there and don't say anything, it's assumed that you agree with what's going on. And I'm sure that most of us do not agree with what's going on in this state right now. And I urge you to find your voice after you found your passion and run. Thank you so much. I would be remiss if I didn't thank my wonderful husband, Gary, who sometimes gets called Mr. Dorothy, and has just been a great help as I've traveled through this wonderful journey into politics. And when I think back of The opportunity to have Michelle Obama's arm around me in Park City, that's another one of those things that stands out. I'm so grateful to all of you and to the Democratic Party for giving me this award. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you, Dorothy. You're a great lady, and